The year 1986. The place, Lake Hawkins, near Hawkins, Texas. The people, Suzanne Harrison, Gina Turner, and Brian Boone. It was a Sunday night on May the 4th. Summer was just beginning, and Lake Hawkins was a popular hangout spot among all the kids who lived in the area. But no one ever suspected that that night would be the last time those three would be seen alive. The next morning, Suzanne's body was found at Barnwell Mountain Recreation Area by a road cleaning crew.
And she said, "Would you recognize her watch?" And I said, "Yeah, she and I have the same watch." And when she showed me that watch, I said, "Oh my God." I said, "I know it's Suzanne," but I said, "Oh my God, that's her watch." And you're stunned. I mean, you see this, but you don't believe it.
She had been strangled to death. Brian and Gina were not with her, and they would not be found until 5 days later, having been shot and killed, and their bodies dumped in a ditch. In a seemingly unrelated arrest the day after Suzanne's body was found, Jerry Animal McFadden was taken into custody on suspicion of attempted aggravated robbery on a couple who lived out at Lake Hawkins.
You don't sleep, and your children sleep with you for several days, for a week or so, because they're scared to go into their rooms. They're scared. And because this man hadn't been caught, and no one knew who it was.
As time went on, evidence began to add up, and McFadden was formally charged with the murder of Suzanne Harrison and transferred to the Upshur County Jail. The community was devastated and gathered together to mourn the loss of three of their best and brightest.
The turning point for me is when I had to cover the funeral of Gina Turner. The funeral was held downtown in the First Baptist Church, and everybody was there. I remember it was so crowded. And of course, at every funeral, it is a sad occasion, and there is some crying and there's some weeping, but this one was different. It was like the whole town was crying. It was like they are mourning not the death of just one person, but the death of community, the end of an innocence for a community that had felt like it was very close-knit and very safe.
But I think this is the worst thing that ever happened to Hawkins, Texas. The worst. Because they were all good kids.
Anger, disbelief, and resentment swept through town as they began to find out more about McFadden.
But how I kind of knew how McFadden, what he was and what he'd done, a couple of 2-3 months before all this, I had gone through the Fina shortstop where his mother and his sisters were working. I didn't know nothing about him, but I told my officers, we work for the people in Big Sandy, and we work for the people in our area. I said, why don't you wave at them? I said, people are not used to police waving at anybody. I said, just wave. I said, it'll scare them. I said, plus if they don't wave back, then there might be a problem. So we started waving. When he waved, I didn't even know him, and he'd pulled up there to go in the store, and I waved at him. He didn't wave back. I didn't think anything about it. Well, about a week later, the other officer, same officer was with me. I said, I'm gonna wave at him again. I did, he didn't wave back. I said, get the tag number off that vehicle. We went back to the office and ran a criminal history check, and guess what? I found out he was a serial rapist, and he'd already attempted murder on a lady. And you can go back and look at his record and what he'd done before he came back to Big Sandy.
It was while awaiting trial there in the Upshur County Jail that he first met Rosalie Williams and took an interest in her. Rosalie worked as a dispatcher, and as much as he could see from his cell and out his 5th floor window, he began to stalk her and memorize personnel patterns and facility regulations.
I started my shift by making the tour, and I can remember going to McFadden's cell door, and he was sitting on his bunk, and he just looked and stared. And I asked him, was he okay? How was his day going? And he just stared. And I just walked away and went back to my workstation. At that point, McFadden was very agitated because he had been asking all day to make a phone call. And so I immediately got on the phone and called the sergeant officer that was on duty. And he came up as soon as he was able. And while they were walking towards me to use the phone, I noticed that the officer was walking in front of McFadden. That's when I realized McFadden was raising up his right arm, and he had a metal object in his arm, and he started hitting the officer on the head with this metal object. I was in a state of shock at that point, and the officer just fell down to the floor next to my workstation.
McFadden had sprung his escape plan. He ordered the pair to carry the unconscious officer back to his cell, and before locking the door, he grabbed Rosalie by the arm and dragged her out. As he made his way out of the prison with Rosalie in tow, he found the officer's .38 revolver where he'd checked it in. Holding it to Rosalie's side, McFadden marched her out to her car where he knew it'd be parked, and sped away from the jail with his newly acquired hostage.